QPR's winless run stretched to 6 on Tuesday with a goalless draw against Stoke City, and they now face a massive game against Wycombe Wanderers on Saturday. I was joined earlier by Ben Kosky, Ian McCullough and former Rangers striker Kevin Gallen to discuss the team's recent run of form and looking ahead to that big game on Saturday. I started by asking Kevin about striker Lyndendykes and whether he should keep his place in the team.
I would say I would give, for this game on Saturday, I would give Macauley Bonne a go. I think Lyndendykes struggling a little bit. Regarding the chance on Tuesday, the defender did get a slight touch, which, you know, did put him off. It looked worse than what it was. And when you see the replay, I have to say it was great defending by the Stoke player. He looks a little bit out of sorts, a little bit lacking a bit of confidence. That is also, I would put down to a lack of chances created for him. He looks like a player who likes the ball in early, especially like the goal against Brentford, where he took that goal very well. And similar to the chance on Tuesday where Illy's chair put that ball in front of him while he's running in on goal. He needs that type of service. That type of service hasn't been there enough, nowhere near enough. And I think he's struggling a little bit with confidence. I've got to say, his penalty taken has been excellent. So, you know, and he scored one goal in open play. I think, you know, this is a chance to give Macauley Bonne a go. Was he a £2 million signing from Charlton? He's been on the bench. He hasn't done brilliantly off the bench, but, you know, I think he deserves a chance. Let Lyndendykes have a rest. But there's also the shout of why can't they play two up front? But then that would mean you're changing the whole system and the formation. And from what I've seen since Warburton's reign, he plays a certain way. He doesn't really like the two up front. So you never know. I mean, against Wycombe on Saturday, you're going to need some headers on the pitch. And I mean that for set pieces defensively. And Lyndendykes is 6'2". Macauley Bonne's decent in the air. So you never know. You might see both of them playing. Just stop the threat of Wycombe set pieces.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it there. Can you sort of sympathise with Lyndendykes having to play that lone striker role? And like you said, he's not had a ton of chances created for him. And I suppose then that adds the pressure on the good chances that he does get, like he did on Tuesday. And do you think Macauley Bonne could effectively do that job better than Dykes?
I think they're actually quite sort of similar players where they want to be sort of running towards goal, facing the goal. Now, the way QPR are playing at the moment is a very slow build-up. And when you have a very slow build-up, the opposition team drops deep and there's no space in behind. So then you need crosses coming in. Now, our wingers are not really crossers of the ball. They like to come in and shoot themselves. So it is a little bit of a difficult one. And I do have a bit of sympathy for both of them, especially in the Dykes, because he's been playing that lone striker. All I would say to him, by the advice, just keep working hard and hopefully the chances come. And when you do get a chance, you've got to bury it. But it's a difficult one for him at the moment. I sympathise, but, you know, I do think maybe Macauley Bonne might need a little run in the team to see what he can do.
Yeah, can I just ask, how hard is that playing up front role on your own? Cause I remember a game you playing against Fulham where I think we had a player sent off and you were up there and you'd be marked by Chris Coleman and Andy Melville, and it's just, you know, you're kind of running channels and whatever, you're doing everything you can, but nothing, you're getting no service. How frustrating is it? And
it is tough, especially when that was a 10 men against 11, and that Fulham team were very good at keeping the ball. When you're playing that lone role, when you're for 11, you need the ball. Yeah, it's a tough one. It is a tough, but most teams playing now, it's a tough one because a lot of the left side and right side wingers are usually sort of, you know, a left footer plays on the right, a right footer plays on the left. They get the ball, they come in and they shoot. Where in the old sort of style where QPR were playing, you had Andy Siddon or Trevor Sinclair, Andy sitting and whipping balls with his left foot, Andy Impey whipping balls with your right foot, and you coming onto things. And the goal against Brentford is a typical where Osei Samuel runs down the wing, skins the left back, puts an early ball in front, he runs in and scores. Now, how many times has that ball been played for Lyndendykes this season? Now, I haven't watched every game, I've watched nearly all of them, but I can't see that many of them sort of balls have occurred for him. And like I said before, we have a slow build-up and it's all nice and technical. It then goes out wide and then two banks of fours in that. They're all set up ready to defend. And I just feel that QPR needs to play the ball a little bit longer and a little bit earlier. That's what I was saying. If I was playing centre forward, I would be demanding that of the player.
I think as well, especially we saw it against Stoke, you know, they had a big defence. I think the guy Suter at the back, I'm not sure how tall he was, but he was massive. Like it was obviously hard for Dykes. You know, he's a big guy himself and he puts himself about, but it's always going to be tricky against someone like that. But obviously talking about QPR's own defenders, Ben. Sorry.
Just one more thing about playing up front on your own. So Lyndendykes playing up front on his own. Now, if I was playing there on Tuesday, and you just said, and their big man Suter, yeah, I would go and park myself on Chester and play against them in the air. That's what I would do. You don't go and park yourself on. So if you're playing Liverpool, you don't park yourself on on Van Dijk, do you? You go and park yourself on the Gomez if you're going to win the headers. So you've got to use your brain a little bit. And
I think it might be the same against Wycombe because they've got plenty of height on their team as well, as we saw in League One last season when they got promoted. That was a big part of their team.
That's why I think that he might play both of them for the sheer of the set piece situation defensively.
If they can train together.
Well, yeah, maybe. Might have 10 minutes tomorrow.
Ben, obviously moving on to QPR's defence, you gave Rob Dickie in your player ratings from the game an 8 out of 10. He's had a bit of an up and down season. You know, he has made some errors. Obviously, gave the ball away against Bristol City for the goal. But I think we all kind of, as we've spoken about before, he's had quite a big impact on this team. And I even know that the goals conceded are still probably higher than the manager will want them to be. They have still kept quite a few clean sheets this season, whereas compared to last season, it took them a long time to get their first clean sheet. So you're obviously impressed with his performance again.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I think he's been one of the positives of the season so far. I feel like he is really kind of growing into his role. What I like particularly is that there's the odd error creeping in, but what I noticed the other night is he was quite quick to recover when that happened, which is a good sign. I think we're focusing obviously on how many chances are QPR creating, how many shots are they having, but look at how many did Stoke have the other night. And again, I really can't think of one or two. I think that was about it. So yeah, for me, Dickie has been one of the positives. And I've always believed that if you've got two defenders in a pair and one of them's playing solidly, I think that can often rub off on the other one alongside them as well. I think, dare I say, hopefully we're starting to see a development of a partnership there between him and Barbe. As you know, I still feel Barbe would be better utilised in a 3 or perhaps even on the left as left back. But I think there's encouraging signs there. And while we're talking about the problems up front, we've got to say things are looking a bit more solid at the back. And of course, it helps having a keeper behind you who's looking, I think, very assured. Really been very hard to fault Dieng at all since he's come into the side. So I think that's certainly an encouraging sign. And of course, if you can keep clean sheets, I mean, it's not rocket science. If you can keep clean sheets, then one goal wins you the game. Whereas so often with this team, we've seen situations where they appear to need to score 3 goals to win a game. Which is always going to be a tough ask, I think.
Yeah, I think Dieng's made definitely a massive difference. For a young keeper, he looks really comfortable, much more comfortable, I think, than Joe Lumley or Liam Kelly did last season. It's strange. It was always a bit of a different problem from last season. They're still conceding more goals than they would like to, of course. But last year with the firepower of Eze and Hugo and Wells, they had those attacking options to score, more than the opposition. Essentially, they were winning games sort of 3-2 and things like that. But that doesn't quite seem to be there this year. Ian, obviously you were not in the press box; you were back in the stands with the fans. Bit of a shame that they couldn't give you bit more entertainment for the last game for probably what will be a while, with London obviously going into the new restrictions. But I mean, how did you sort of assess the game? And I suppose at least it was nice to be back in with the crowd at the least.
Yeah, well, I was at Fulham last night, so Tuesday I had off. I did the Reading game in the stands as well. Very kind of similar games, I thought. I think the defence is, results aren't dictating it, but defence looks a lot better than it did last year. I mean, largely that's because you've got a goalkeeper that's not throwing them in, which was the case for, how many points we lost last season due to errors from Lumley or Kelly jumping over the ball or letting it through their hands. So the keeper's very solid, and across the season, I think it's only the Blackburn game where Rangers have really been kind of under the cosh. Blackburn were very good, and they kind of, weathered the storm as much as they could. But I mean, they're comfortably the best side I've seen this year, Blackburn. And Dieng's barely made a save. You think outside of those games, the Reading game, he hardly touched it unless he's picking it out of the back of the net. I don't really think the problem is the centre halves. The problem is what's in front of the centre halves. You've got, Cameron. He's been a decent player, a good pro and that, but he's 35 now. He shouldn't be playing every other week. And Don Ball, frankly, he's a League One player. So, they've lost Amos at the start of the season, which is a massive blow, huge blow, because really they haven't got anyone who can kind of, with legs in the middle of the park, who can sort of do that job. So from having like centre midfielders coming out their ears two years ago, they've now got a real paucity of centre midfielders. And I think in January, he's got to address that. He's got to pick someone up, whether it be on loan, just to fill the role there, because I don't know how you guys see it, but to me, the problem seems to be coming when Rangers are conceding. The problems are between the edge of the D on the penalty area and the centre circle. It happened against Millwall, losing the ball in that area, and the ball's played wide. It's happening over and over again. And I think that really is the biggest issue that they're facing at the minute. I mean, Chair's getting better each week, I think. I thought he was excellent for an hour against Stoke. He was very good against Millwall last week. But again, the centre midfield area I think is a real problem.
Ian, I agree with you with Tom, Don Ball, and agree with you with Cameron, who's he's getting on a bit, but he wants to just sit in front of the back four and win headers and sort of be just basically another centre half. Regarding the centre halves, I think Dickie's done really well. He's going to make mistakes. He's only a youngster. I'm just a bit worried that I wish that Dickie had someone better alongside him. Now, I think it was you, Ben, said that Barbe maybe at left back. I would agree with that, because defensively, Barbe, he's not a good defender. He's good on the ball. His passing is excellent. Defensively, he gives away penalties. He's not a natural defender. And if someone was a bit more experienced with Dickie to help him along, I think that would be so much better for him. At the moment, for me, Dickie the younger is the leader at the centre halves. He's the leader and he's the younger one. It should be the other way around. Even like Tony Leisner was there to bring him along, or Grant Hall, sort of that sort of type, a bit more experience to help him. But I think Dickie's will be a good player. I think he's a good player already. I think it will get better. I like him.
What do you think about the option of potentially moving Barbe in midfield, Kev? Would you think that would work?
Midfield in the centre, holding midfield, maybe. He's got a good football ability, as in he can pass and he sort of knows the game. I just don't think he can defend. I don't think he's great at defending the box. As you see, he's given many penalties away, like the own goal against Barnsley. He's just, if I was the opposition, I'd be saying, if I was a centre forward, like I just said before, play on him. Play on him. Don't go over to Dick. Play on him, because he'll give you a chance. So I wouldn't mind him, because I think he's, like Ben said, if you played a back three, that would be perfect for him. Left side with maybe Dickie on the right side and an experienced middleman to help him. And it's sort of set up for QPR to do that. But then where would you play Osei Samuel? Because I don't think he's a wing back, but we might not have that problem in January by the looks of things, listening to the press. So that could be a formation change.
I think it's a good point.
Just to play two up front.
It's a good point about the midfield too, the holding midfielders. I think there's definitely not much of a link between those two holding midfielders and the attack. Whenever they sort of get the opportunity, Jeff Cameron say to bring the ball into an attacking area, they seem to not make the most of it. I mean, I saw Cameron had a great opportunity to send, I can't remember who it was, might have been Dykes or Bonne, away on Tuesday. All he had to do was sort of play the ball through. It wasn't a very tricky pass, and he sort of scuffed it a bit, and it forced him really, really out wide. And it's just they don't. I think Luke Amos, like you said, probably would have had an impact there. He does bring something a bit different to that area, and I think they've obviously Don Ball's been coming off the bench a lot, and he seems to have been like the sort of go-to to try and get a bit more creativity in that midfield area, which is strange because I don't think that's really his role. I think he, to be fair to Don Ball, I know obviously Ian, you're clearly not too big of a fan, but I actually was really impressed with him last season. I thought he had a really good season. I thought he was one of QPR's best players, and went kind of under the radar. But yeah, this season I think he's been used in a slightly different role that maybe doesn't suit him.
Well, Cameron and Don Ball basically want to both play holding defensive midfield player.
Yeah.
So Don Ball is not. So then if you had Amos who could run on and Cameron or Don Ball holding a little bit, then that's better. Now you've got Cameron holding and Don Ball running on. That's not going to work.
I mean, we've touched on it a bit already, Kevin, but obviously the importance of this game, I know it's still relatively early on in the season, but I think this is a really big game for QPR on Saturday with the run the way it is. What do you think are the main things that they need to do differently and the manager needs to look at if they're going to get a result here, which is obviously really important?
Well, first things first is like you're going to have to defend set pieces against Wycombe. That's all they're going to do. It's like Wimbledon of old. They're going to get the ball and they're going to bang it long. And you've got to win your headers at the back. Don't get bullied. Don't get outworked or outrun. And then defend your set pieces. Because they got, I think, is it Joe Jacobson, their left back, is it? Is that right? Yeah. He's got a good left foot. And he's in the team because he can put the ball in set pieces excellent. Not a great defender, but he's in the team because he can put the ball in the box. Now, if you don't defend that, QPR will lose the game. So that's why I keep saying I wouldn't be surprised if they play Dykes and Bonne just for the headers. And so that's what they've got to do. They have to be tough and resilient. And then hopefully, if they can weather the storm a little bit, which there will be, then they'll come out on top because QPR will be a better footballing team than Wycombe. But they have to weather the storm and weather that, and they'll have to just defend the box. Defend the box well, you win the game. Simple as that.
I think they had a decent dress rehearsal for this game against Millwall last week, and they, by and large, they come through that pretty well. Millwall towards the end, threw on the three big men, and it was just bombardment. And they held the line well. They did what they had to do. I mean, a lot of that is, Kevin knows much better than myself, but it's just being organised. No one to step, no one to mark. Everyone's got their man, and you can't have little errors like Hammerline against Brentford marking the wrong man, that kind of thing.
Well, that was Ian. That's because they've done a zone. QPR do a zonal from set pieces, zonal. So when I used to play, and when Jerry Francis and all Ray Wilkins, we used to have you have a mixture between zonal marking and man markers. So the man markers would be Alan MacDonald, Danny Maddox, Cole Reddy, whoever. They would be picking up their 3 or 4. So we'd have 4 good headers of the ball. Les Ferdinand back there as well. They pick up their best 4 headers. Then you have a zonal near post. Then you have 2, 1 on the near post, 1 on the far post. So the near post area is zonal. And then you have your 2 zonals maybe on the edge of the area. Now, QPR just play zonal all the way. Ivan Toney went, well, if they're playing zonal, I'm going to park myself on Hammerline because he's the weakest in the air. What happens? They put the ball in that area and he scores. Then I'm saying the older players should be saying, hold on, I'm marking him, not you. You get over there. It didn't happen. So if QPR do it that way on Saturday, they could be in trouble because if Hammerline is marking Akinfenwa, then who's going to win that in the air?
No one wants to mark Akinfenwa, do they?
No. And that's what I'm saying. So they have to be more organised. They have to work on defending set pieces because there's so many goals go in on set pieces.
I did notice Sorry, I did notice against Stoke they were doing more man-to-man at corners than they have in previous. I personally hate zonal marking.
No, because no one. Do you know why zonal marking is rubbish? Because no one can then take responsibility.
Yeah.
Who scores? So before a match, you're like, right, you're marking him, you're marking him, you're marking him, and if your man scores, then it's down to you, and you go, well, why didn't you win your header? When there's zonal marking, no one gets the blame.
Yeah. And it's always told to me like a space has never scored a goal. So why are you marking a space? You mark a man. That's why.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of zonal marking.
But back to say they were better against Millwall. I think they have, since that Brentford game, they have been better defensively. I mean, the game, and it's been to the cost of them going forward in many ways. But I mean, the goal against Reading, it was a great strike. You couldn't fault really anyone for that. The geezers put one in 30 yards. Fair play to him. But as you say, that's going to be Wycombe's threat. But Rangers should win Saturday. They should win Saturday.
Yeah, they should.
It's very interesting, actually. Kevin, you used the phrase "weather the storm," and that set me thinking. And I'm trying to remember if you were playing in that game at Wycombe some years ago when the wind was blowing, God knows what, and I think Martin Rowlands scored one that sort of floated over the keeper, and but it was a crazy game. I remember the goalkeeper couldn't get the ball out of their own half.
I remember it's 2-0 down at half time. We then changed ends. I think I got one back after about 46 minutes, and then Martin Rowlands put a cross in, and the wind just took it into the back stick. And really, we should have went on to win that game. But yeah, those conditions were horrendous. So I don't know what the weather's like this Saturday, but hopefully it's not like that.
I don't think it can be like that. That was a one-off. That's why it's stuck in my mind. And apologies for forgetting that you'd scored that day. I should have remembered that. But I think it was Rowley's goal that sort of stood out because, as you say, it just floated over the keeper.
Yeah, no worries, Ben. I'll let you off.
Ben, we were on the Celtic that day, weren't we?
That's right. Yeah.
Ben, obviously the manager's already under a bit of pressure, as you know every manager would be when it comes to a run like this. Obviously, there's reasons we've found out now that Dykes and Bonne haven't been playing together because, as we found out in the press conference on Tuesday after the game, that they've apparently not trained together properly. So obviously they've not been able to work on their partnership, which is why he's been a bit reluctant to use them together, which is strange because we've been through a fair bit of the season now, which is slightly odd. But do you think now is the time for him to try and change things around before essentially it becomes too late?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that concerns me about the manager, and it is that every manager's got their favourite formation. That's understandable. He doesn't want to seem to change, or he doesn't seem to want to change his at any cost. And I just feel that's often too rigid. I mean, when we've seen, for instance, Macauley Bonne come on with Lyndendykes, he's playing wide left. He's got a slot into that existing system. And I would like to see situations where, depending on how the game's going, and if you need to get a goal back, you've got the nous to change it around a bit, or you've got the players to change it around a bit and try something different. And that really does concern me. I don't want to use the phrase square pegs in round holes, but I think if you're so kind of rigid about the formation you want to play, then that's what you're going to end up with. You're going to end up with forcing players into some position that you're not getting the best out of them. I just feel he's got to be a little bit more flexible with that. I mean, as you said, the other point about the two main strikers not having trained together, I mean, that I have to say was a real eyebrow raiser. I mean, I can't really comprehend how that can be the case. I mean, if they're not training together, presumably does that suggest they're never going to play together? I don't know, because surely if it's part of your plan that at some point you want to have the option of a partnership up front, then at some point in the last few months you're going to have surely got them working together. So that seems very, very, very strange to me. And as I say, I know there's a lot of chatter about the manager's position, as inevitably happens after a poor run. But for me, that is the main concern. Is I'd like to see a bit more flexibility. with regard to formations and just not perhaps always going down the same route of this is how it's got to be, because you need a plan B sometimes, and I've got to say I've not seen a plan B in the games that the team has been behind or needing to find a winner from somewhere.
And plan B is more plan A.
Yeah, that's how it seems. It's
I've heard that before. Managers say plan B is make plan A better. But,
okay.
I don't agree with it, by the way. I think you should have a different formation. I think you should have 2 formations. I think if you have to throw in another striker, you can take off, a midfielder and put Macauley Bonne and go 2 up front, put the defence under pressure. But then if he does that, he has to go a little bit more direct, and I don't think he wants to do that.
I think a lot of people want to see Bonne and Dykes together. I certainly would like to, and I know obviously we've spoken about what we would as well. But I mean, just regarding whether they will play together on Saturday, I mean, when he spoke about that they've not trained together, he sort of went on to give a little bit about what's happening this week, and he sort of said that they're essentially not doing much work in terms of like physical stuff. A lot of it was kind of rest and like light work to preserve the sort of stamina of the players. So, I'm not sure we'll get to see them again together as a front 2 because of them not being able to train together again, which is disappointing. But hopefully they'll get to practice together again soon.
So I don't mind a manager who sticks to what he believes in. I think you get in Holloway situations then of chopping and changing and no one knows what they're doing. I think the Millwall game, if you watch that game, they were longer. Dieng was kicking out of their hands a lot longer. Lyndendykes isn't very good in the air. For his size and that, for everything he does, he's not going to win you a ball in the air like Matt Smith would or a Jordan Hugo would last season. It didn't really work. They were going long and it just bypassing the midfield. It doesn't work. The players they've got and the way the team is assembled, when they function best is when Chair's busy, when Bright's on his game. That's when they work best. And really, you need to see more out of Bright Samuel. I think he's been peripheral since that Bristol City game. He really hasn't done. What you need more from him. And I think if you go 4-4-2, play 2 up front, who are you going to leave out? You're going to put Ilias Chair out wide, or are you going to leave him in the middle where he's better? Shove him out on the wing. What are you going to do? You're going to have Cameron and Ball, Cameron and Carroll as 2-man midfield. Is it going to work? I don't know. But I think when he says he hasn't trained with him, I think Warburton's a manager that is very fastidious in how he plans ahead of what he wants and how he wants to play. And I think the fixture list they've had, and the number of games they've had, it's crazy. It is. You recover from one game and you get a day off and you're playing again the next day. So I know what he's saying, but it doesn't sound great. Oh, they haven't trained together. But does he? I mean, I think it'd be crazy to sack him. You can't. I don't really see it making sense. Who are you going to bring in? Who are you going to bring in that's going to be better than what they've got?
Yeah, I had a little look at the.
You win 2 games in the division, you're back halfway at the table again. It's.
Yeah, I had a little look at the unemployed managers just out of curiosity, and I didn't think there was anything great around. I mean, obviously you could go after a manager who's already at a club, but that financial stuff comes into that, doesn't it? And whether the manager wants to leave, which makes it more difficult. But I think I saw Nigel Pearson's name mentioned on Twitter, which is about the only sort of recognisable name from the list of managers that would be available. He's obviously a very different manager to Mark Warburton. So, but yeah, I think for now,
they were going to do it. Paul Cook, I think, is a good manager. I think he'd do a good job, but I don't think we.
I've got to be honest with you, Ian. I think Paul Cook, with all due respect, I think Paul Cook could get a better job, and I think this is what a lot of people forget. When they're looking at potential managers, is quite frankly, we'd all like to think managing Queen's Park Rangers is the ideal, is the pinnacle for everybody, but being realistic, I'm afraid it's not a big draw for a lot of managers, and that's something that has to be kept in mind. And I'm in agreement with you about Mark Warburton. I just feel the thing that concerns me is that sort of rigid approach to the system. And what I would say is, when you're in a game where you need to force the pace, you need to get a goal back, whatever it is, you've got to give the opposition something to think about. I don't think it's any good making changes that just effectively is more of the same. You know, you've got to try and throw sometimes the opposition out of their stride, and give them something different to worry about. And I don't really see that happening with I suppose Plan A2, whatever you want to call it.
The hands he's dealt with, the squad he's got. He's doing well with a very, very limited squad. Let's be frank about it. You know, you've got a League Two standard left back. You've got a right back who's a mediocre at best. You know, you've got an aging centre midfielder. You know, a limited guy alongside him. You know, and the rest of them are kind of young, upcoming players. And you got, you know, an inexperienced striker you've paid a lot of money for is struggling with confidence.
I think
he's doing quite nice. He's doing an okay job.
Okay, and so who do you blame for assembling that squad then?
Assembling the squad? Well, there's a myriad of people you can blame, isn't there? You know, is it the scouting? Is it? I mean, there's some good players in that squad. I think Willock's a good signing. I think he'll become a decent player. I think Dykes will get better. I haven't seen enough of Bonne. I don't know anything. I've barely seen him. He's come on and scored a couple of goals off the bench, but I haven't seen enough of him to make a judgment on him.
Well, what I'm a little bit would be worried about is if Osei Samuel does go in January, who do you replace him with? Because whether he's playing well or not, he's the main threat for me. Because he's the only one who can actually run past players. He can get the ball from his own half and run the whole length of the pitch and create something. So if he's going, who do we replace him with? Because he's a massive outlet for QPR. Away from home, when the keeper gets the ball and they play that long ball and he gets on there and he gets a corner out of nothing. Who else have we got?
That's the worrying thing, I think. That's
going to be a big problem, I think, for QPR. Who's got that pace to run past anyone other than him?
You look at the obviously the transfer. They lost Eze and they've not adequately replaced him with anyone as good, which, to be fair, was going to be ridiculously difficult to do because of how good he is. But they opted not to buy Nahki Wells, who scored a lot of goals for them. And obviously Jordan Hugo they didn't buy, and he went to Norwich. And you look at the replacements for those players and you probably say, well, they haven't replaced them with anyone quite as good. And if they let Bright go as well, that could be the same thing again. So if the squad's getting progressively worse, you know, it's not surprised that the results are getting worse, really, is it? If you look at it as simple as that.
Well, not really, because I've got a QPR friend and we was talking about the squads from last season and the squads from this season. And he said, Kevin, the squad this season's better. And okay, let's go through it. So I would say at the moment, the goalkeeper is an upgrade. Definitely. I think he's done really well. Last season, you had Angel Rangel, Todd Kane and Kakai at the club. Angel Rangel used to come in, a bit of experience, right? Now he's gone, we're a bit weaker in that position. Centre half, you had Leisner and Grant Hall. We've brought in Dickie. I still think we're a little bit weaker this season. Left back, we had Ryan Manning. Ian, are we weaker this season, left back?
Most definitely.
Okay. Midfield-wise, Amos was fit. Who else was in midfield? Scowen was there, or did he leave right at the start?
It was January, I think.
Okay, so we had him and Amos, plus Don Ball, plus Cameron. We're weaker again, I think. Tom Carroll's come in, he's done well. Striker-wise, we're definitely weaker. And creativity-wise, we had Eze, who was different class. So we're weaker there. Samuel goes in January, we're now weaker on the flanks because we haven't replaced anyone on the flanks at the moment for me. Willock, maybe, but not right yet. Albert Adoma, I think his legs are gone. Or he's carrying.
For me, I'll answer.
So I'm saying the squad's a lot weaker this season than last season, for me.
Well, answering your question, Kev, about what if Osei Samuel goes in January, to me, the answer is that's the point at which you change your formation. Because, as you say, he's the one player in the squad who can do what he can do. Now, if he's left, I would say that is the perfect moment that you look at going three at the back, you look at wing backs, and you certainly look at two up front. Because I think, by and large, there are the players, maybe not all the players there to do that. You would certainly, I think, need another centre-half. You would probably need someone to replace Ryan Manning, who would have been the ideal left wing back. But for me, that's the moment at which you say, okay, you get money for Osei Samuel, then you switch the system. I don't think Mark Warburton will do that. Unfortunately, I think it will be a case of putting, as I say, square pegs in round holes. But hope I'm wrong with that.
Well, with 6 months of his contract left, how much will we get for Osei Samuel? Because they offered, was it Bruges offered 4 3/4?
Yeah, it was a couple of million. It wasn't very much.
So now that's gone down to it's going down to nearly $1 million, $2 million now. $1 million?
Is that even
on a free?
I mean, yeah, is the Premier League club that desperate to get him that I suppose if they want to get him and there's competition, they'll pay the money, but it won't be very much. It will be, I mean,
I don't think Samuel's going into a Premiership club to go and start. They'll maybe as a sub or a squad player and maybe try and develop him. I would say maybe a top Championship team. But then you don't know what goes behind the scene. Him and his agent might be they're obviously talking with other clubs and saying, hold on, we can get you out to this club for a free in the summer. Just wait 6 months.
I mean, there's contract talks obviously ongoing, as what Mark Warburton said. But, not much has been really given away. So I suppose there is a chance he could sign with QPR. But then if he's got offers from the Premier League, he's obviously a very ambitious guy. He left my team Blackpool to go to QPR, so he's got his heights set higher.
Yeah, no, but so would you be, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
If the New York Times come in for you, would you stay at West London Sport?
Yeah, I would.
And tripled your wages? There you go. So when people say about the loyalty in football, there's only people who are loyalty, and that's the fans, because it works both ways. I thought I was loyal, but I got kicked out of QPR, so they weren't loyal to me. So, do you know what I'm trying to say? The only people who are loyal are the fans. Always. And it makes not laugh. It makes me go when QPR supporters give it. He's a disgrace. He's got a bad attitude. I say Samuel ain't got a bad attitude. Every time I see him play, he runs his socks off and he tries. Not saying he's playing well at the moment, but I can't say he's not trying. Can anyone?
Yeah, I think that's a very easy thing to point at any team that isn't winning. They're not trying, because footballers do try. It's a rubbish thing. People say that, it's just kind of, well, they are professional. They're professional footballers. They're trying. It's a very easy.
I'm going to take you back into about 7 or 8 years ago when Harry Redknapp was QPR manager, and I think I can list a number of players who were in the team at that point who I would say were not giving it their all.
No, that's true, Ben. Let's just talk about the ones. I can't say anyone
here and now,
but you're 100% right. I could name you loads who didn't give a monkeys, as they say. Didn't care.
It'll certainly be interesting to see what happens. Before I let you all go, I'll just get your predictions for the game on Saturday. Kevin, what do you think? QPR win or win this run?
I'm going to go 1-1.
Okay, Ben?
Kevin's just given the answer I was going to give, but I'm going to back it up and just say Wycombe, I think 8 or 9 games without a win. Rangers now 5 or 6 without a win. So that says draw to me, and might be another 0-0, I suppose. That's possible, but I'm sorry, I'm going to go with 1-1 as well.
What do you think, Ian?
2-1 Rangers.
Confident. That's what we like. Bit of confidence to end the show. Although I do think it will be a draw as well. So